welcome back to my YouTube channel. And this is going to be the next part of our food app series. So, in the previous video, we implemented the restaurant notification, and in this video, we are going to implement the adding menu feature where basically we can list the menu items and we can add the menu item to the server, right? So, let's just get started. So to add menu item, the first thing that we need to do is that we need to be able to upload an image file to the server, right? So if you want to add some sort of images to the server, we need to set up some sort of configuration. I've already implemented the image handling on the backends, but you need to set your own configuration so that it can work. And to set up those configuration, the first thing that you need to do is that you need to get over here into to superbase.com. Superbase is basically an alternate to Firebase storage, and I'm gonna use that. So superbase.com, and you can just log in, and once you log in, you'll most probably get some sort of something like this. If you don't know how basically I have configured it, I have already a video on this on a different project, but at least for the configuration part, it can help you out with that. I'll basically add the link to the description for that. So once you log in and create your first project on your Superbase, the second thing that you'll need to do is that you need to go over here into storage, and then from storage you can just create a new bucket from here. Okay, so once you create that bucket, I've already created this bucket. You can create your own bucket as well. So let's say I'm gonna say food hub bucket over here. Okay, and you need to make sure that it's a public bucket so that it can be accessible from outside. And once you do that, you can just save that. Okay, so now you can see that we have these two buckets, and now let's just start set up some sort of policies for that. So the next thing that you need to do is that you need to get over here into this policy, and now you can see that we have this chatter image which has some sort of insert setup over here, but we don't have any policy for the food hub bucket, right? So you need to make sure to set up some sort of policies for that, and for that you can either go with the quick started one. I'm going to go with full customized because I want to give it everything, every specific thing. And we can also like set up some sort of role. I want to like make it accessible to all the users. So again, this is something that I'll do, and then I'll set this name for this is that food hub policy. Okay, so once you do that, you can just review this, and once you review that, you'll save it, and when you save it, you'll see that you have something like this. Okay, now these things are done. The next thing that you need to do is that you need to go to your project overview and slightly scroll down over here to this point. Now over here, there are certain things that you'll do. So the first thing that we need to do that we need to copy this project URL. This is important. So I'm going to copy that. And once you do that, we'll get over here. And now you can see that we have this stuff, right? So I'm going to paste that URL over here. Second thing is again going to be the API key. So I'm going to copy that API key over here, and then I'll go back to my backend code. Make sure that it's a backend code and you are on a Superbase config file. So I'm going to paste that key over here, right? And the third one would be the bucket. So you know that I've created just right now, I created this bucket which is named as food hub bucket. So I'm gonna copy that and I'm gonna name it something like this. Okay, now make sure to not share these keys and URLs with anyone. Keep it in your environment variable and access it from there. But yeah, once you basically set this up, what you need to do is that you can just run the code and make sure that your server is running. Now the next thing that I'll do is that basically our server is done, and we'll go back now to our Android Studio section. And now from Android Studio section, what I need to do is that I'm gonna go to the restaurant. Okay, and from the restaurant section in the UI part, features, and now from over here, let's just start working on our stuff. So the first thing that I need to do over here is that I'm going to add it a menu, and inside the menu what we need is that we need two things. One is listing, okay, and the second one would be create a new package, and that is going to be menu dot add. So I think these two should be enough. So now what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna create a new Kotlin class over here, and let's just call it list menu item screen. Okay, And this is going to be a simple, not a class. Instead, it's going to be composable. So we'll make a composable over here and we'll create function list menu item screen and keep it like this. Okay. The next thing that I need over here is that I need to create a view model class. So I'm going to say view model, sorry, list menu item view model, and this is going to be class. And as I always say, make sure to create an inject constructor for this and also extend it from view model class so that it can inherit all the view model properties that we need. And we also may need to make sure to annotate it with health view model so that it can be injected when needed. Right now, inside this constructor, you know that we need a couple of things. First thing would be food API. So this is something, right? And what else? I think that's pretty much on how we set it up. Now, the next thing that we need over here is that we need to create a state, a UI state that we need. So for that, I'm going to say seal class list menu item state. Okay. And now over here, we'll basically create those states. We have already a menu item, so we don't need to worry about that. But I think that should be enough. We have a list of menu items as a data and then message as an error message and then something like this. Other than that, we can create one event as well. So I'm going to say seal class menu event. And this is going to be object, and that could be go add new menu item as menu item, right? So these are the two things that we have all done, and now we'll create a seal class for that. Sorry, I'm not going to create now let's just create a state for that. So I'm going to say list menu item state, something like this. That is going to be mutable state, sorry, mutable state flow to have an initial value of loading, and then I'm going to say as state flow so that it's not changeable. And the next thing could be something like this, where we'll say, let's say, function on add item clicked. Okay, so once that is done, I'm going to say view model scope, view model scope, something like this. Okay, and let's just import those values. We don't have that, so we need to create that event for that. One more thing that we need to do is that I'm going to use over here as always mutable shared flow, and mutable shared flow doesn't require any initial value, so this is something, that's why I'll need it, and we'll make it as shared flow. Okay, and now we'll just again import the extension function, and then this is something that it will do for us. So now what I've done is that I've created a state for managing the state, a menu item for something like that. I think one more thing that we can do is that we can also implement a retry functionality over here, because there can be cases when there is a failure. There might be some cases where we are not able to access that. So for us, for a retry mechanism, we should also have that functionality. Okay, so now this is done. This is something that we have done, and now let's just look for what we need to do in term of implementing the endpoint. So how we are going to access that, right? Okay, so to access that, we need to go to our backend code once again, and from the backend code, we need to go to our menu item routes. Okay, these are the one that are needed. Now over here, you can see that if you want all menu item for a restaurant, this is the URL that you need to access, which means that if you slash restaurant and then you pass the restaurant ID and then menu, this means that this will basically get you that information. So we're gonna copy that same path over here. And one more thing that you can see, that for getting, you can get it through this, and then if you want to add a new item, you can do it through this. The same functionality, same is going to be done for update and delete as well. So so I'm going to copy that path, and once I copy that path, I'm going to create a get request for that, and over here we'll basically paste that section over here like this. Okay, and now we'll create a suspend function as usual. We can do something like this again. What we did over here is that we set up the path. You can say that we are using the same id, and this is how basically we need to set it up. We need to define this like we did for order id and other endpoints as well, and we need to pass that as a string, and then in return we are gonna get food item response, which is not the response that I'll expect. So I'm gonna go over here into this postman section, and we have this something like this. This is basically the restaurant id that I'm gonna use, and then we have this menu item, so the same path, basically call it, and now you can see that I have this list. It contains a couple of things, so we'll just copy that and we'll paste that. Oh, sorry, we'll go over here into the Android Studio, and now from over here we need to go to our main section, data section, and inside this models, let's just create a new Kotlin class, but make sure that it's a data class from JSON. So now click over here and then paste the same JSON that we have copied from there, and then from over here let's gonna say food item list response. Okay, this is again the same stuff that it will do. The only difference is that it's going to create a food item x, which is again the same thing as we have for the other section. So I'm going to just delete that, delete anyway, and we'll look into our food item. This is the same thing that we already have it. So I think we are not we should not worry about anything like that. Now inside this food list response, just make sure to use the correct food item over here, and now use the same response in the food item food list. Sorry, right. So basically, this will basically give you the list of the menu item that we have, and I think now over here inside this functionality, we are gonna say private function get list item. This is a function that we'll make sure to call, and then we'll say view model scope dot launch, right? And inside that, now inside that, I'm gonna say wall response is equals to safe API call, and then from there we are gonna just say something like this: food API get food item response and restaurant ID. Now, restaurant ID is important. As you remember, we implemented the profile section for this, so like the restaurant details section where we can get that. Here is the information that we did, and you can see that the restaurant profile that we have, it contains some data. We just display it for now, but we need to store it somewhere so that we can access it, right? And for that, you know that we have something called as session. So I'm going to say wall session food hub session. Okay, now inside this food hub session, you can see that right now we are just storing the token, accessing the token. Now we are going to store some more thing as well. So we'll say store the shared preferences as well, and then we'll also implement function as get restaurant id, and this will somewhat help us with that. Okay, so this is something that we have done. Now we are gonna go back to our this section, like sorry, not this section. Instead, it was a home view model. Yeah. So inside this home view model, we'll get over here, and once the data is basically fetched, what we need to do is that we need to go for session dot store restaurant, and then from over here, I'm gonna say something like this, which will basically do the same thing. Now, once we store that and we get over here, you know that we have this ID. So we are gonna do the same thing for this section as well. We're gonna say fast session food hub session, and now this session will help us with sorry wall restaurant id is equals to session dot restaurant id, and then now we'll just okay. So I'm gonna use that like this. We know that basically it's not gonna be nullable, so it doesn't matter if we just do it this way. And now the next thing would be to like parse the response. So simple, straightforward, we are going to do this, and this data dot food items would help with this. Okay, there is something wrong. Required is the list item. What is so now over here we'll basically set something say something as something like this, which will basically get us the food item list response. Okay, so this is the mistake. It should be food item instead of menu item. I basically added a wrong stuff for that, but I think that should be enough. So now, okay, so once you do that, this is something I guess we should do. And for failure as well, we can just do it from there. And now let's just start working on the UI screen. So to set up our UI screen, the first thing that we need to do is that we need to have a have a view model. Or for first thing that I think we can use is a nav controller. So nav controller is the first thing. Then we need a view model for that, and that is going to be built view model so that it can be populated. So now over here, the first thing that we need to do is that we need to set up a state. So for that, I'm gonna say view model collect as state with life cycle. That's one thing. Second thing is going to be to set up our events so that when basically there's some sort of navigation that we need to do. So now over here, I'm gonna say launched effect true, so that it's basically set the configuration as first one time only, and then we're gonna say menu item, and we'll say collect latest, which will basically help us collect only the latest event. And now from there, we are gonna get this, and for now, let's just not use that line. We'll add it later on. Okay, so now the next thing would be to set up some sort of UI stuff, and now you can see that we have these things. Okay, so we have loading state, which basically we are showing the loading. For that, you have that loading screen, right? For error state, you have a error screen. So I'm gonna use the same error screen over here. We are gonna use the state message, and we are also gonna use it. Say that if it's a failure, you can retry it from here. And this last thing could be lazy column. Okay, and then I'm going to say items, make sure to use the selected one, and then say state dot data. I think that should be the one. And this is something like this. Now one more thing that I think we can do over here is that we can define the key as well. It's like basically perform better, and then we are going to say menu item. So now over here, there is something that I think we should do, and we are already using like in a customer section. If you remember, we have in the restaurant details section, we have that item where basically we show the menu item or the food item. And so let's just use that. Let's just do that. We are gonna get over here into this restaurant details screen, and from this restaurant details screen, you can see that we have something as food item view over here. So let's just copy that. I think that should be the one we should use. So we'll just copy that. Okay. And instead of using it inside the customer section, we'll use it in the main side so that it's accessible from both sides. Again, reusability. So we'll get over here into the features. Let's say, is it main? Yeah. So now inside this feature, let's just come on. Inside this feature, let's create a package, call it common, and then we'll create a new Kotlinite file, and then we are gonna say common items. Let's call it common items. Create a simple file, and then inside that file, just paste whatever we have copied from there, and you'll see that it will work as smooth as possible. Now, important thing is that we have this shared transition section which you need for this, and we can implement it in our restaurant in a list menu list screen as well. So we'll do that as one thing. Now over here, let's just get over here and implement that food item view that we create. We have basically copied it. So I'm gonna say food item view. Okay, so now this is something we have done, and it's not basically letting us access this. I think that could be because of the shared transition scope. we need to define that, and once you do that, you can see that it's now allowing us to do it. So you can just opt in for that specific section, and now you need to do a couple of more things again. We'll just copy the same structure that we have over here, as this animated visibility scope is also important, so I'm going to use that over here inside this class as well. And we'll also pass that animated visibility scope so that it can fix it. Again, we can go to the navigation detail route, but I'll give it to you as an assignment, because there are some certain things that you'll not want to do in the detail screen, so you have to basically fix that. And I think that's the rest should be fine, or maybe we can create a lazy grid for this rather than this, because it should be lazy vertical grid. Column is a grid cell, okay, and we're gonna say grid cell dot fixed as 2. Okay, now we need to import again items, the one that contains the list, and then you are good. So basically that's something that we did. We have the stuff ready, and now what we need to do, I think the next thing that we'll do is that we need to run and see if it's working, and if it's running, yeah, yeah, I think let's just run this. Okay, so now let's just try to execute that. And to execute that, what we need to do is that we need to go to main activity. Okay, and now inside this main activity, let's just set up that composable. So we'll say composable, and that is going to be menu list, right? And we'll say something like this. I think that should be list menu item screen as this, and it requires again share transition. So for that, I'm gonna say this. I think that should be enough. Okay, now we don't have this menu list, so we'll just get over here and create another section where it can contain that menu list, and then we are good. I hope we can just import this. Yes. Now, where do we want to show this section? Because again, it should not be showing like on every section. So one thing that I can see over here is that we have one more section. We can add one more item over here as a menu items. So I'm gonna say bottom nav item dot orders. I think we can add one more as menu for this. So we'll get over here, create another section, say as menu, and for drawable, let's just maybe use Android dot r dot drawable dot menu more. Okay, I think that should be something that might help. Okay, so we have this menu item that will help us create that. In that case, it's going to be showing is true. Show details, show bottom bar for details should not be shown. So this is a bug. And for home, it's fine. I think that the rest is fine. So let's just start uh, executing this and see if what we have implemented is actually working. Like we are able to see the list of the items that we have. And the next thing that we'll do over here in this specific video would be to upload some sort of new item. If a user wants to upload new item, they can do it. So let's just wait for that and see if everything is working as expected. Okay, so we can see that now it's loading. Okay, let's just try to log in with honor one at example.com. Password will be 123456. Create a sign in. Okay, everything is done. Our restaurant is loaded. And now this fourth item is our menu item. So let's just click on that and see what happened. Okay, for some reason there are these two items are being clicked. Okay, let's see why it's something. Okay, I think I know why it happened. So the reason is that I copied the same structure. So maybe that is why you can see that it's a navigation order list. Instead, we should have done is menu list. So I think that's why it did. And now let's just rerun the code. So hopefully this time when I see, we should be able to get that menu item section as well. Okay, now let's just click on that. Okay, it is loading, but it is not, the loading is not going away. I think I know why it's not going away. And the reason is that, let's say, when you get over here into this view model section, you will see that we are not actually calling that method, this get list item, from anywhere else. Either ideally, we should be able to get this when basically this specific screen is being loaded or view model is loaded, so that it can load the menu items and show it to the users. So that's why it's not there. And now let's just again try to. Okay, now click on that section. Okay, you can see that we got the menu item for that specific um, restaurant. Again, the on click item is there, but we are not we haven't implemented it, and I'm gonna ask you to do that, because this is something, some sort of an assignment for you. Now the next thing that I'll do over here is that I'll create a plus button over here, and that plus button is going to help me with fetching the details for, sorry, adding a new item to this. Okay, but before that, let's just create some screens. So I'll get over here, create a Kotlin class fall, and you're gonna see, and it's going to be add menu item. Okay, add menu item screen. This is a file which will be simple file, and it will contain a composable from our side. So I'm gonna say composable for this function. Add menu item, simple, simple and clear. Next thing would be to use another Kotlin file, Kotlin class, and that is going to be add menu item view model, and that is going to be class. And we know we need to do a couple of things with that. So that's going to be uh, int view model. One thing, second thing would be to have an inject constructor. And again, I'm going to use a food API for this, which is used. And then we also need a session. So let's just create a food up session over here as well, and then make sure to extend it with view model. Okay, so now when you go to a food item, you can see this is a food item. This AR model is something that we'll do as a last thing. The next thing is that it have a description. It has a image URL. It could require a name and price. So in ideal case, from the user perspective, what we need is that we need a price, a name, image URL from the user. This id is going to be nullable, because we in this, in our case, we are not going to passing that specific thing as well. Same is going to be done for the user id as well. Restaurant id on the other end should be there. So I think that should be something that we'll do. We have a description. I'm going to set it, or I think fine, id and image URL that will use name and price. Okay, so these four things are required from our side that we'll use. Perfect, right? The first thing we'll be using is that we'll say private wall, um, and we'll name it as name. Okay, that is going to be mutable state flow of string, and then we'll use wall name as state flow. Right. Second thing is going to be description. Same thing for description. Third one is going to be price. Same is going to be for the price, and the last one is going to be for URL. Okay, I think that should be also be something that we do. Now the next thing would be to create some functionality. So we'll call some functionality for that. on function change, on description change, on price change, and then the last one would be on the URL change. This URL is basically more like a path of the file, which we'll use. And the next thing would be to create some sort of functionality for this, which basically we have name, description, price, image, URL, restaurant ID. And this section is something that we'll reuse it later on. Okay. What else do we have? I think that should be enough for this. And then now the another thing that we need over here on top, over here, let's create those, and that's going to be private wall item state. Okay. And we don't have an item state, so just create a shield class for that. Shield class add item state, like this. Idle is another case. Success, we should also be using one more thing, and that is going to be error. And I think that should be enough. So basically that's something that we did. And in term of another class that we need is that we need some sort of event. Add menu item, instead we'll say show error message. That is going to be data class. Okay, and now let's call this as wall message as string. This is important for in case of error. And the next one would be data, sorry, not data, instead this is going to be object. um, Go back. Okay, so I think that's one thing. Now over here we'll basically create for this, let's just use something like this, and then we'll create an event. But as I always say, we are gonna use shared state flow. Okay, and we don't need that sorry, the basic one. It'll be mutable shared flow. Okay, and now this is going to be, let's just use it the way we are using it everywhere. Okay, so now almost everything is done on item change, and on add item section we are gonna get this, all these values. I'm gonna make sure to convert it to double or null. If it's convertible to double, we'll do it, else we'll basically set it to zero point 0.0, and then I think the rest of the thing is pretty much how I want it. So now we'll go to our food API, and like I mentioned that we need the same path like this for post. So this is just change would be just post ID, restaurant ID, and we'll also add a body, food item as food item, right? Now, once you do that, this is going to be, I think that is going to be a generic message if I'm not wrong. And we should say post. Okay, so add restaurant menu. Now there is one more catch. This food item requires an image URL, and we don't know where to get that image URL from, right? So for that, we are gonna do one more thing. If you go to our backend code, so this is basically the backend code, and now we are gonna look for our image routes. And now, okay, now over here you can see this is basically image slash upload, which means that now it basically requires a multi-part data from the server, from the client side, and then we need to pass that. So basically for that, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna set that up. Okay, so let's just go to our Android Studio again and open our food API section. And now at the food API section, let's create a post request. And along with post request, as I mentioned, that this is going to be a multi-part request as well. So a multi-part request is basically a request where you are sending some sort of a stream, like a file or something, or an image that you want to upload. So for that purpose, you do something like this, right? And for that, the next thing would be to create an upload image. right? And that upload image is gonna contain a body, and then in return what we need to do is that we need to get a URL from this from as a response, right? So for now I'm just gonna set it as generic response, but we'll set it to something like image upload response. Okay, now inside this what we need to do is that we need to define the type of our request. So for that I'm gonna say part, which is basically specifying that this is going to be a multi-part request, and then let's just call it a name and call it as multi-part body dot part, which means now this is something which we'll do right now. For the image upload response, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go over here into our data section, into our model sections, and then create a new Kotlin from JSON file. I do have the response for the upload value. I guess I had. So over here I'm gonna paste something like this. Is basically just a URL that it will contain, and then let's just call that as image upload response and generate that. Once you generate that, you can basically extract that, or sorry, import that, and now this is something that we have. Okay, so I think that's something. Now the next thing would be to start working on our screens, basically having some sort of UI for the user, where user can basically upload the images and handle those things, right? So the first thing over here that we need is that we need a view model that we created. So for one thing is that we will creating nav controller as nav controller. Second thing would be to create a view model for that. Now we have a nav controller and a view model. Add view item. Yes. Okay. Now inside that we'll create a column, and that column is basically supposed to contain everything. Like we'll be saying modifier dot fill max size, so that it covers every space. Now let's just add a couple of things. For example, for the title, let's say as add menu item. Okay, that's one thing. Second thing would be to create an image for that row. So basically now this is something that we'll do. I'm gonna create an async image, and then for the model I'm gonna use a view model dot image URL. This is basically going to be either a URL or a URI based on whatever I have. So we'll use that. And the next thing would be to have a food image. This is basically just a content description. Now over here I'm gonna say food hub text field, right? And for that I'm gonna say view model dot name dot value, or let's just do something like this, not like this. But get over here, we'll say wall name collect test it with life cycle. Then we'll say description, same thing is going to be for that. Then we'll get for price, and for image URL we don't need that, because for image URL the process should be different. Now over here we have something like this. We will be using name dot value for this, and then on value change, as we have that we value on name change, same is going to be for description, same is going to be for price. Okay, so now these are the things that we have for our implementation for the menu item. And then the last thing would be to create a button, and that button is gonna basically say something like this. And now once we do that, we will be using view model that on add menu item, and this is basically where it will start doing its stuff. So that's one thing. Okay, now the next thing is that when user click on that async button icon, what I want to do is that I want to take the user to a next screen on a different screen, and from that screen we'll basically upload that image, or sorry, load that image from the storage. And if there is, like, when user select an image, we'll return that image back, and we'll set it um, in the URL as a part of the URL, right? So let's just do that. Okay, so for that, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna create a modifier. So I'm gonna say modifier dot size. That's one thing that I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna say one. tdp dp. That then the next thing would be to clip it, round corner it. Okay, and then once that is round cornered, then we will basically make it a clickable, and when it's clickable we'll basically navigate to another screen. So we're going to view model dot on image clicked. Okay, and then this image click will basically be helping us navigate to a different screen. So now over here, let's just create an object, go add new image, right? And this should be something like this. Now over here we'll say view model scope dot launch, and this will basically do something like this. Okay, now we'll get over here back, and now you can see that we have something like that. So now we'll do a couple of more things. For example, when everything is done, what I'll do is that let's just try something else. Let's just create a UI state. So I'm going to say wall UI state. UI state is equals to view model dot UI state. Okay, we haven't created the UI state. We do have add menu item state, so I think that's the one that we need. Dot collect as life cycle, and then the next thing would be to have a launched effect as true. And now inside that we'll say view model dot event dot collect latest, and then over there basically we'll start navigating. So for example, will when it says then that we will say go back, fine. For the next thing is uh, it should be add new image, which will basically help us navigate to another screen. And then the next thing would be as show error message. Over here we are gonna do is that we'll basically create a toast dot make text and something like that. In case of add new image, we are gonna do the same, which basically means that the image was added. So basically we'll say, sorry, not over here. Instead, over here we are gonna toast that message that the image are up, sorry, item added successfully. Okay, and then now over here basically we'll navigate. So I'm gonna say nav controller dot navigate, and now over here I'm gonna say add image. Okay, now this is basically we don't, sorry, not something like that, it should be something like this. Okay, so now this is something we'll use in the nav routes, which we don't, I think we have something like this. So now we don't have that, let's just add it. Okay, that's something as this. We also don't have the add menu item, so we'll also add that as navigation helper. Okay, now we can import that, and I think we have pretty much what we needed. The only thing that we will do is that when there is a loading case, so let's say we'll say if it's a loading. Okay, I think we can do something like this. Okay, I think that's fine for now. Let's just do it this way. We can handle it properly, but let's just do it this way. And now over here we'll also check if the state is error case. In that case we'll basically show a text with basically the error, whatever error we have. So we'll say that there is some sort of error. So that's pretty much what we should do. Okay, and then this you can make it, so make the color change to red so that we know that this is basically error case. Okay, so now this is basically something that we did. For loading, the button will vanish and the item will change it to something else, and then for the rest we are pretty good. And now we need to load this section, and once we load this section, we'll see how it looks. To load this section, what we need to do is that we need to go again to the list screen over here in the list item section. Okay, I think it should be string, right? So this is something that we will do over here, and we don't have anything ready, so I'm going to create a box over here, and now we'll create, like, load everything inside this box. So let's paste everything inside this box, and then over here we will create another button. So over here, let's just use button. Okay, and now inside that button, let's say text add item. Okay, and over here now inside this modifier, we'll basically set it so that it's aligned to the bottom. So I'm gonna say bottom end, which is again a good thing that it already automatically did it without me asking it. And now over here we will basically be doing is that we'll say view model dot add item clicked. Okay, which means that it now should navigate, take us to the navigation. And this is basically the section which basically says nav controller dot navigate. And now we'll say add menu. I think it was add menu. Yeah. So basically this will basically call the add menu, and this add menu will take us to the desired section where we want to navigate. Oh, so I think that should be enough. One more thing that we need to do over here is to we define that when user click on that section, we should be able to do that. So I'm gonna say add menu, and now over here we'll basically do something like this. We don't want to show that bottom navigation bar, but we can show this. And we also, I think, need to pass the this. Okay, so it's requiring unhilt view model, and we need to set it as hilt view model. I think that should be enough. Now let's just try to run it and see if these stuff that we did is actually working. What I should see is that I should be able to see a list of, like, a kind of a form that have some buttons, and then from there we'll take it on how we want to add the image uploading section, and then how we can get the rest of the information and paste it to the server. Okay, so we are over here. Now let's just get over here. You can see we have this add item. When I click on that, you can see that I'm getting over here, which is again pretty much what we had. We definitely we can fix the design of this. We have an image over here which on click failed, which is again a reason you can, you know, that why it failed, because we haven't set the navigation. But I think the screen is there, so let's just work slightly more on the screen, and then we can start working on the rest of the stuff. So we'll go over here back to this section, and you can see that it's a fill max size, but for the other stuff we haven't done anything else. So now I need to do a couple more things so that we can fix that. And now I'll say a background with light gray color. So that's something that will help. And for these field items, I think we can define some sort of modifier like this. Along with that, we can define a label as well. And that label should be, it should be something as text name. Okay. So that is something that we should do. And we are gonna do it for all the other fields as well. This is going to be description, and this is going to be for price. Okay, we can see that it's been loading. Go to the menu, go to the add item section, and now it's looking much better. We have an image section as well, and the rest of things are also looking much better than previous implementation. So I think that's what we have. And now what we want to do is that when user click on this section, let's say we want to navigate to a section where we can load the images, or image. For that there are two ways: either you can load the image right away from this screen, or you can go to a separate screen and do it from there. So it's up to you. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna get over here into this menu section, create a new package, and that package is going to be an image, which is mean that now it will basically handle all the image related stuff. And now over here, I'm gonna say image upload, sorry, image selection, image picker. Let's call it a image picker screen. Okay, this is going to be a simple class. We are gonna say composable function image picker screen, and this is going to be nav controller as a nav controller. Again, this is something that we will be using it to send the image back, right? Now over here we need a couple of things. First thing we need over here is that we need a context, that is going to be local context dot current. Second thing, a selected image URI, which is a URI that we will be basically using, and that is going to be equals to remember, something like this. Okay, one more thing is that basically we'll say coroutine, coroutine scope, as remember coroutine scope. Okay, that's one thing. The next thing is that we have a couple of things to do, right? The first thing would be to check for permission. If the permission is there, fine. If it's not, we need to request for permission, right? So for that, I'm going to say wall permission launcher. Permission launcher is equals to remember launcher for activity results. And then over here, we'll basically request for something like this, which means that now that is it will basically request for some permissions, right? And if basically the permission is granted, which means that okay, the permission is granted, for that we are gonna do a create a image picker launcher. Launcher is equals to, again, uh, something similar, against remember launcher for activity result. This is basically something like that, it loads another activity and wait for that, so that the new image or whatever that we basically request is basically accepted. So once that is selected from the next screen, it take that result and then give us as this result, right? In this case it's returning URI, in this case it's returning a boolean. So now if something like that happens, what we need to do is that we need to define that we need a launcher for specifically images only, right? So this is something that we have done. Now one more thing I think that we need to do over here, let's just do one more thing. Let's say launched effect and set it to true. Now this will basically define that if there are like permissions that are granted, for like for read external storage, if the permission is granted, will launch it, else will request the permission, right? And we also need to define the same permission. This permission should also be defined in the manifest file as well. Okay, this is again for Android above 33. You need to define these as well. Okay, now that is done. Okay, so we'll go back to our image picker screen, and now inside this image picker screen, what should happen is that if there is something, the image is properly loaded, which means that if it's not null, we're gonna do that. Else what we are gonna do is that I'm gonna say nav controller dot pop backstack, which means that it will just go away. Now along with this all these things, so let's say when the image is loaded, we want to like show it, like place it somewhere, right? So to place it somewhere, I'm gonna say is that we have a column, and then over here this will basically help us set up that image, show that image to the user, so that if user think that this is the correct image that we want to upload, then fine, else we will uh, deselect that. So I'm gonna say async image again, then over here we'll basically use the selected image URI dot value as model. We set that to null. We not gonna do a little bit of more things. For example, we'll basically fill max width. I think that should be something like this, so that it covers the width. And then along with that, we'll basically create a button, and that button is gonna help us finalize if the image is correct. So I'm gonna say text. This is going to be um, select image. And now once the image is selected, what we need to do is that we need to set that nav controller dot um, dot previous backstack entry dot argument, and then over here we'll basically set that image URI as a into that previous stack entry so that it can be loaded from the next previous screen. And I think that should be enough for that case for now at least. Now we need to load this image. For that image picker screen, I think we need to get over here. And now let's just set some sort of composable again for this. And then I'm going to say image picker. And over here, we'll basically do something like this, right? We don't have that image picker, so we'll add it along with the add menu that we have. Let's add this. And now we'll basically import that. I think we should be good over here. So what should happen is that as soon as I land on this screen, it should ask for permission. If I allow the permission, it should take me to the image section where I can select an image. If I select correct image, fine. Else it should take me back. So let's just create a toast. So image not selected, something like this. Okay. And now let's just run this. Okay. So now we are over here. We get over here into the add item. We click on that. And as soon as I click on that, it took me to this camera section. No, sorry, it crashed. Okay. It should not crash. Let's see what happened. Okay, so it says that the add image that we are trying to do to basically use, it's not available anywhere. Okay, let's see this add image, add new image. I think it should be image picker. Image picker. I think I mistakenly add that to two different navigation routes. So I think that was my mistake. We can get rid of the add image because that's not been used and we are not going to use it anyway. And let's just try this with this one. Okay, we are over here. We're gonna click on that add item. When I click on that, you can see that it asks me right away for the permission. And as soon as I select or add the permission, it takes me over here. We can select that image. You can see that the image is selected. When I click on that select, nothing happens because we are not basically popping it back. But I think you can see how it works, right? Now we'll do over here, we'll get over here into our image picker screen. And from that image picker screen, where do we do that? I think that was something where we do it. And then from over here, we'll basically pop back to the previous screen, which is in our case, this screen. And now over here, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to set up the image URL. So I'm going to say image URL is equals to URI is equals to um, nav controller dot current backstack entry, which means that basically in the image screen I selected previous because the previous one this one, but in this case it's going to be this. And now over here we are going to say save state handle, which will be again another thing. And then over here we'll basically set that for an image URI. I think we can do something as this if I'm not wrong. And we also need to define an initial value, and we can collect that. Okay, now basically this will be an image URI, and I think we can, rather than using this, we can say launched effect image URI dot value. image URI dot value. So let's say if there is any change in that, we'll basically check if the image URI dot value is not null, which means that the actual image is selected. We are gonna change that, and then I think the rest should be fine. The rest should be wall image selected image is equals to view model dot image URL dot something like this. Now over here in the image section, we already have something like this, but I think that should not be this way. It should be image selected image dot value. Okay, now let's just execute this whole confusing flow that we did, but I hope everything will be working fine up and until this point. And when I click on this specific section, it should allow me to select that image, like load that image that we have already. So let's see how it goes. Okay, so the image is loaded. We are over here. We are getting over here. When I click on that, it's loading this. Okay, something went wrong. Now let's just try. Okay, I think there is something wrong. I think I made a mistake. Rather than having a parse syllable, like we have a parse syllable, and instead I'm trying to get this as image URI. This is going to be something as URI. Let's do something like this. I think that should be fine now. And now for image URL, since we have this as URI, so I think we can set it as null. Okay, and it should be URI. Okay, let's slightly change what we have. So when you do that, you need a URI over here, which is a nullable URI, and then the rest is fine. And rather than using something like this, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna say save state handle dot set image as something like this. What I was doing is that I was passing as an argument, but expecting as save state handle. So I think that was why we were facing this issue. So now let's just do that without specific thing. And this time, hopefully, when we get over here, we select that image. We will okay. We need to make sure that we pop back stack that as well. Now let's just rerun this again. Okay, now it's running. Let's just go over here again, click on that, select an image, select that, and now you can see that we got that image over here. So basically, this is basically an image URI, and we'll work with that and uploading that file. And now over here, let's say if I add an item that this is going to be pizza, you can add some description as this was a very good, this is a pizza, it has all these details and stuff like that, and the price should be 33.44. And now when click on that, nothing happens because we haven't implemented anything like that. But we will do it, right? So basically, now for now it's something like this. We don't have anything else right now. We need to implement now how we can upload that specific image as a multi-part to the backend. And what we will do is that first we will upload that image, and we will receive a response for that image. And when we receive that response, based on that, we will basically set another make another request, which will basically store the rest of the information. Okay, so now for that, what we will do is that we'll get over here into our add menu item section. And this is the screen. Instead, we want to go to the view model section. Now this is the section, but where we basically we have all these things. So the first thing that we need to do is that we need to upload the image. Okay, that is one thing. That's the first thing that we'll do. over here, and once we upload that image to the server, the next thing would be to um, basically upload food item, right? So that's something. Okay, so now let's just start working on uploading that image to the server. Okay, so basically to upload that image to the server, we know that what we need to do, that we can maybe create something like this, that if there is like anything empty, we need everything for that. The next thing would be to convert that, like to, let's say, let's just create another suspend function and call that as upload image. Right, it will take that image URI as a request, and in return it will return the URL of the server. Now inside that, the first thing that we need to do is that we need to create a file from that. So I'm going to say file is equals to um let's create file from URI. Okay, and then over here we'll pass that. Let's create a file from URI, something like this. I think that should be enough. We don't need that. Instead, we can use the simple context over here as application context as context. We can make that as wall. That is going to be application context, or let's just use simple context rather than application. So it's going to be context. Okay, now you have something like this. You can just change that, or get rid of this. So now over here, what we did is that we basically created this as a cache directory and under temp image. One more thing I think we can do is that we can say file dot create temp file. We need to add some sort of prefix to this. We need to define the file path, and then we can define the directory as well. So I'm gonna use that as JPG as a file path, file basically suffix for that, and the prefix could be something, and we can also add something as system dot current time in millis dash, or okay, so that should be enough. I think that should be something. So now what it will do is that it will create that file for us. So once that file is created, the next thing would be to create a part request from that. So I'm going to say wall request body is equals to file dot as request body, and we'll define that content type as image to media type. Okay, you can also say or null, just to be sure. And now the next thing would be to create a multi-part body. Okay, and for that you can create something like this, saying that okay, this is basically an image, the name, the type of data, like the create form data that we will be basically creating, that is going to be image. The file is going to be the file name, and the request body is again the media type or the file body type that we have. This is something that it will do. And now we'll say wall response is equals to safe API call, and then from over here we'll basically upload that. And now once we basically, let's say if we get that URL, we should get when response, and it should not be result, instead it should be API response dot success, and this is going to be else. Let's call it else rather than is, right? And let's not return a null. Okay, make it unnullable. Okay, so I think that should do it. This is basically an upload image. Now over here we'll say wall image URL is equals to image is equals to, let's say, image URL to string. Instead, this should not be this, it should be wall image URL is equals to image URL dot to string. It should be equals to upload image, and then we will be passing. I think that should be fine. Okay, and now you know that this is basically a suspend function, so you need to make sure that we will be calling it as a view model scope dot launch, and from there we'll call it. First we need to change the state to loading, then we will upload that image. Once the image is basically uploaded, what we are gonna do, let's say if it's null, which means that we'll basically set that as an error saying that the server went, like if something went wrong. And then for the rest of the stuff, what we are gonna do is that we are gonna basically add restaurant menu, add that, and instead we'll basically create a food item. That food item will basically define these values for that. Okay, we need the restaurant ID as well, so we need to set that something like this. Okay, there are some values that we haven't passed, so I'm gonna set those as null so that it doesn't complain about that. Right, what's missing now? Created at, that should also be null for this case because we, that will basically be handled from the server side. Okay, so now we, when we do that, we are done over here. Now we need to handle the one more case that we have over here. It should be exception, I think. Okay, so I think that should something that we should do. We should go for go back once everything is ready and the item is being added. And yes, I think that should be enough. Now, one more thing with go back um, UI implementation over here is that you can see that you can go take the user like to go back, but maybe we want the previous screen to be repopulated in case something has updated so that we can see the new item that we have added. So for that, in that case, I'm going to say again nav controller dot current backstack entry dot something like this dot set, and we'll basically do something like this. Okay, so now it will basically pass that value as true to the list screen over here, like this section. And now when it's navigating, we need to make sure to clear that value added from there. So I'm gonna say nav controller dot current backstack entry dot save state handle dot set added set added as false so that it can do it, or you can just remove that as well. You can just remove that key if there is any key so that it's not available there. Okay, now this is done. Okay, and now over here we are gonna say wall um, is item added, which means now this is something that it will check, and then it will set as get state flow. For that, initial value should be false dot collect as state. And now over here we'll basically set it as launched effect, so whenever there is any change in the value for that, we'll keep an eye for that. Which means now let's say if the value item is not null, or let's say it's a true, we'll basically retry reload the stuff that we have. I think that's a lot of things that we did. Now let's just try to run the code and see if we can add the menu item to the server. The app is loaded. Let's just see if we can add that item. Get over here, we click that image, select that image. Fine, name should be FK pizza. uh, Great pizza. For description, the price is 12.23. Add, and as soon as I click on that, it's saying that it's failed. Now let's see why it's saying that. We can look into that. Let's see what we do wrong in over here. Upload image. Oh, okay. Now this is again a mistake from my side. So as I mentioned that we need to define that image routes as slash images slash upload, while I was not adding that. So maybe that is the reason. Now let's just try once again. I hope this time it will work. Okay. Now let's just go to the add item, select an image. We have selected that image. Add some name again. FK pizza. Let's call it great pizza. Price is 21.99. Okay. We can create on that. You can say that, see that it's adding item and the item is added, and you can also see that item over here as this section as well. So this is exciting, right? And you can see that most of our basic functionality is done. You can just receive that order, you can change or place, update the orders based on what it has as an section. You can see the notifications that you receive for each order. You can add the items from here. Now there are a little bit of like some more stuff as well, that you can create a delete menu item or like edit something like that. These things are again just same thing. All you need to do is that you need to define a specific request for that and paste it. So I'll leave it for you as an assignment, and we'll jump into the rider app where we will basically create a notification flow and a section where a rider can basically pick up a delivery. We can assign a order to the user, to the rider. Your rider can pick that delivery and then deliver it. So that would be our next couple of videos. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. If you have any comments, suggestion, or whatever, please comment down below, and I'll try to respond to each and every one of you. So I'll see you in the next video. Till then, happy coding. Bye.
I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please like the video, comment down below, and share the video with your friends. For similar content, you can subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Instagram, and if you have any queries, you can join my Discord server where we discuss different kind of things. So thank you so much for watching the video. Have a great day. Bye.